This came as a special request from some of our friends that it is better to respect this cultural aspect and start the ceremony with the light. These lamps become the source of light for our lives and a very nice inspiration to start this day, this launch of the Peace Conference. Thank you very much, Shailja. Thank you very much, Pradeepan, for giving light to this occasion.
Normally, we do it by clapping.
Very good.
Thank you, Shailja. Thank you very much. So friends, very good morning to very good evening to different people joining from different parts of the world. We have people for whom yet the morning is yet to begin, and we have people for whom the night is just around the corner. Thank you very much for being with us on this occasion. Today, with all our humbleness, on behalf of the organizing team, the World Humanist Forum Asia, we welcome you to this moment where we embark on an ambitious dream of the journey to build the peaceful Asia as the foundation of a peaceful world. I, Sudhir Gandhotra, with my 43 years of participation in the humanist movement, I am very happy to be in this role of welcoming you in this moment. The moment that we believe to be a historical one, because it offers us the opportunity of catalyzing the fundamental change in the lives of people and countries. I welcome the distinguished speakers of the conference who are going to enrich our lives with their experiential words. We have with us, some have joined and some will be joining in the moments to come, Mr. P.V. Rajagopal, a Gandhian from Ekta Parishad, Mrs. Tara Gandhi Bhattacharya, chairperson of National Gandhi Museum and the granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi, Mr. Tony Robinson, a humanist, peace and non-violence activist, Mr. Kumar Ketkar, distinguished journalist and member of Indian Parliament, Dr. Vinaya Aryaratne, the president of Sarvodaya Shramadhan movement from Sri Lanka, Dr. Professor M.P. Mathai from Gandhi Peace Foundation, Dr. Professor Shamsuddin Tamboli, he is the president of Muslim Satya Shodhak Mandal, Dr. Chamunda Padmakumare from Colombo University, who has been able to join us in spite of the serious problems going on there right now, and Mr. Antonio Carvalho, a humanist since 1969 and now core part of the World Humanist Forum Asia. With the background of Buddha and Gandhi, among many others who have shown the way of nonviolence and expansion of this ideal of nonviolence into a structural way of working to overcome violence from within and around oneself by silo, we are rightly placed and equipped to build the peaceful Asia of our dreams. Your active support on this journey will only make it more real than yesterday. The work of Mahatma Gandhi is now very well recognized, even by those who cause violence in the world, and they make it a point to claim their allegiance to his ideals, even while going against them. Non-violence cannot be ignored anymore. Nonviolence represents the voice of the masses across the world. Nonviolence now needs to be brought into action in every aspect of life so that peace prevails. The recent 378 days farmers' nonviolent protest on Delhi's borders have demonstrated that nonviolence is the best tool for social transformation. Taking the concept of nonviolence further, Silo expanded it with explanation of various forms of violence like physical violence that we all know of, and economic violence, racial violence, religious violence, psychological and moral violence. He further went on to explain what he termed as internal violence that we commit on ourselves, like fear, hatred, resentment, frustration, injustice, false hopes, and all forms of negativity that resides within a person. Let me begin by answering the question that we faced: why this conference? Faced with the situation of war between Russia and Ukraine, we experienced a sense of impotence and despair as to why we cannot stop wars forever. And some of us started discussions and to plan a response. And we decided to build an initiative of people for peace, an initiative of people across Asia for peace. There has been tension between Russia and the West ever since the disintegration of erstwhile USSR started. Before going further, let me make it very clear that we are against the Russian aggression and we are for peaceful solution to all the issues solely through negotiations, and that all wars must stop immediately with the sole condition that all issues will be resolved solely through negotiations, irrespective of the time required for the negotiated process. The unwritten agreement of the highest level between Russia and the West that NATO will not come to the borders of Russia have been neglected every time, causing increasing tensions for Russia. The killing of more than 16,000 civilians, mostly Russians origin, in the regions of Donbass and Luhansk has been an 8-year-old issue, where the West kept quiet about all the violence for which it has been arming Ukraine all through while claiming itself to be neutral. Russia kept asking for restraint for peace and was met by the arrogant, insulting manner of the West, led by USA, obviously insulting an otherwise equal superpower. Obviously, this upset Russia, while the West kept on arming this area with heavy arms in Poland, for instance. Freeing of the two regions of Donbass and Luhansk by Russia and the arms exercises by Russian army all around Ukraine was the obvious violent response, and the start of war was only a matter of time. While Russia is a clear aggressor on Ukraine, the role of US-led Western NATO alliance is equally responsible for the whole violent situation of war in the region. Whatever the reasons and the excuses that either side makes, we demand that the war stops now and all parties come to negotiations and resolve issues solely through negotiations. All armies must go back to their barracks everywhere unconditionally. With this background, we, the humanists, working as Humanist Forum Asia, decided to initiate this conference, and it is a moment of happiness for us to realize that we are being accompanied by you all and many others who are not present here with us, but will keep joining this humble effort. You will today hear from some of the experts of nonviolence. Their expertise lies in their real life experiences of taking nonviolence further in life by influencing the lives of many, using nonviolence as a tool, of their action among masses. With this, we look forward to building the base of peace across Asia, all of us together, joining millions with us in this people's initiative. Now, without much ado, let me have the honor of inviting our speakers. I invite Mr. P.V. Rajagopal, a Gandhian, influencing the lives of millions of people at grassroots. Known for his work through Ekta Parishad, among other organizations, he brings here a rich and unique experience of using nonviolence as a tool of transformation. Mr. P.V. Rajagopal.
Thank you, Sudhirji. Thanks a lot. Thanks for organizing this conference and also for the initial statement that you made. I want to thank the entire team for this interesting, important work. Now look, I am sitting in a place called Morena, a small village called Jora, where the mass surrender of Dacoits took place back in 1972. 654 dreaded Dacoits put down their arms in front of Mahatma Gandhi's photographs in this village. So it's very historical from a point of view of moving from violence to non-violence. Now, because I'm engaged in this work, now I am reflecting, how do we create a non-violent society? Now, every time we speak to our activists and workers, we tell them that in order to create non-violent society, you need to have non-violent methods in agitation, in your struggles, which is of course important. But then in the process, I was also developing what you call a threefold approach. See, I call it threefold approach to creating a non-violent society, and I'm placing it in front of you to check how do you take it, how much you appreciate it. I know there are very experienced people listening to this statement. So the first one, the first fold out of three is what I call the state, the governance. It is not enough that people who are struggling will use non-violence, but the state will remain violent all through. This idea that state has the power to use violence need to be, we need to revisit this idea. Somebody is speaking.
Please, can everybody mute themselves? Sir, 1 second. 1 second. So you can unmute yourself and start, please.
Yeah. So the first area is, how do you make the state non-violent? You know, it is not enough that the struggle group should be non-violent, but the state will continue to be violent. This we cannot accept anymore. The state, after so many years of governance, need to understand how to transform from a violent state to a non-violent state. This is what we call civilization. We need to be more civilized. So there are three proposals that I'm making. Please listen to it. What I'm proposing is a non-violent lens that the government need to use. See, we have gender lens, we have environmental lens. These are the lens that we use to verify whether the programs that we are announcing will destroy the environment or whether it will empower the women or not, etc. So the gender lens and environment lens are very common now. Can we now speak about a non-violent lens, that you look at your programs and policies from a non-violent lens and see whether these programs will create more violence or it will create peace in the society. So one thing that I'm repeatedly proposing to many states, wherever I go, state government and central government is to use non-violent lens as a point to measure. Like Gandhi said, think of the poorest and weakest. That was one measurement that he gave us. So we need to use non-violence as a measurement, whether these programs and policies are making the society more peaceful or more violent. And from that angle, we will understand that many of the programs that we are proposing, the governments are proposing one after the other, will definitely create violence and not peace. The second thing I am proposing is a dialogue-based solution to problems. What is happening now? For all the problems, government is using police and force. Now, a police has become an answer to all the problems. You ask for drinking water, police. You ask for land, police. You ask the government close down the alcohol shop, police. Every demand that you make, the officials are sitting behind in an air-conditioned room and asking to deal with it. And let us understand, police has no power to decide anything. They can only beat up. And that will create more anger and more frustration among people. So why shouldn't educated people who are holding higher positions come out of their office and start talking to people? Because you are only saying, look, give us drinking water. This is something you can solve. They are saying close down the alcohol shop. So I think a dialogue-based solution, like you were speaking in your initial remark, even if it is war or even small problems, a dialogue-based solution should be found. So that is my second argument, that the officials who are occupying higher positions need to learn how to dialogue with people who are agitating on small issues that are affecting their life. Police and army cannot be the solution for all the problems in the world. The third thing that I am suggesting is that every government should think about a peace ministry. If you can have a defense ministry, which is generally used for war, and if you can have a ministry for police that is called home ministry, why can't we have a ministry for peace? See, how do you expect police and army will bring sustainable, permanent peace? Peace needs to be cultivated through various other efforts, not by using police and force. So this notion that wherever there is unrest, let us send police and they will bring peace, we need to get out of it and then start working on a ministry for peace, so that this ministry can do many things. I will come out with the ideas later, but I don't want to take time now. But so these are three suggestions for the state. One, use non-violent lens to measure all your developmental activities. Two, make your officials to learn how to dialogue with people who are angry and agitating. Third, initiate process so that you have a peace ministry at the state level and the national level, so that the minister and his team or her team can start planning about building peace in the society. So this is the first fold. I say threefold. It's the first fold. The second fold is about educational system itself. See, from an educational system of the kind that we are running now, expecting a peaceful society is not going to work. Let us admit that this education will not take us to a peaceful society. This is a competition-based educational system, job-centric, job-seeking. It is not about peace and non-violence and construction of society, etc. So what I'm telling that every subject should have non-violence as a component. It's like cross-cutting. Idea should be non-violence. It's like a person who is into developmental studies should know non-violent developmental studies. Otherwise, the kind of developmental model that we see every day, they're only creating conflict and violence. The economic studies, why shouldn't it be a non-violent economic studies? Because it is so violent, the kind of economy that we are constructing, a bottom-up, a top-down economy, excluding millions of people, some people creating wealth. How can you even call it an economy, right? So this economic study need to be a non-violent economic study to understand how do you include people, how do you build economy from bottom up, and how do you distribute wealth, etc., etc. So I think the economic studies need to become non-violent. Governance studies, same way, that how do you govern non-violently? Or journalism or mass communication. Look at the way mass media is used. Every newspaper has all the heroes standing there with a gun. The social media is used day and night for spreading hate and violence, and communities are getting divided. So we have used this media in a way, social media especially, in a way to spread hate and violence. So people using such instrument need to understand how do you use it non-violently. Even the legal system, for example, how do you use legal system non-violently? Because this is not available to the poor people. It is only for the rich. If you have money, buy the legal possibilities, buy the biggest brain in the legal system, and win your case. For poor people, there is no possibility. So whether it is developmental studies, economic studies, governance studies, journalism, mass communication studies, or legal studies, I think people need to have an understanding of how do you use that subject non-violently. Otherwise, we will ultimately create a very, very violent society. Let us admit that this world as it is today is not created or constructed by uneducated poor people, right? Illiterate people. This is basically the product of those who call themselves intellectuals, who are highly qualified. So this is a time for us to realize that through all this education, all these qualifications, we have constructed a world, a system that is unjust and that is perpetuating violence to the people at large. So we need to now revisit the educational system and see how we make education a tool, a non-violent tool for transforming the world. So the first one was about the governance itself. The second one is on education. I have one more argument before I stop, and that is about urbanization. This is the third fault. You know, the way cities are created, they are so unkind, so ugly. I mean, I have traveled through Latin American countries. I have traveled through African countries. I'm traveling through Asian countries, and I see the cities are created at the cost of villages. You have taken the resources of the village. You have destroyed the water resources and other resources of the village, and you have finally constructed an ugly, ugly city, which is not useful for anybody. If you look at a city, take example of Bombay or Delhi or Calcutta. Is it women friendly? No, women cannot really deal in those cities, that situation. Is it poor friendly? Poor people are there to serve the rich. But then if there is a heavy rain, there is no shelter for these people to sit down and wait. There is no place for pedestrians. There is no place for people on bicycle. This is absolutely not poor friendly. Is it old age friendly? It is not old age friendly. Even young people find it so difficult to cross roads. How do you expect old people to cross roads? So physically challenged people, poor people, women, old age, everyone finds these cities very ugly, very unkind to them. So if we want to create cities, it needs a different kind of planning, different kind of approach. One, it should not destroy the villages and take the resources of the village and create cities. Second, if at all you create a city, that should be friendly to everybody. So sitting here in this place where mass surrender took place back in 1972, we were hoping that after the surrender, we will work towards creating a peaceful society and non-violent society. But looking back, I think the governance system is so violent. The educational system is so violent. The urbanization has become so violent, and poor people are finding it absolutely difficult to cope with this model, this educational model, this development model, this urbanization model. So we are excluding millions of people, and that is violence. And that indirect violence of excluding people is basically leading to direct violence. When people take gun and become dacoits, robbers, that is the end result of the way we have constructed this society as it is today. So my appeal will be that as we are speaking about constructing a non-violent, peaceful society for the next generation, this generation may not be able to live in that, but then for the next generation, we need to seriously visit the kind of system that we have developed during the last many years. And I hope we will continue to discuss and debate about it and find solutions, if not global level, at least at a smaller level, micro level, we should start finding solutions to this problem. That is the only way I see that we can move ahead in terms of creating a peaceful, non-violent society. Thank you for today, and I hope to listen to other presentations. Thank you. Sudhir
Very
bhai.
nice.
Thank you, Mr. Rajagopal. In fact, your speech has given us a fantastic program to go forward. A ministry of peace in every government, and this ministry talking of resolving all issues. Thank you very much, especially for this point from among many others. And your speech is surely worthy of listening again and again and deciding many things. And I need not say, but let me say it for the sake of all the participants, that we are sure that you will be with us, guiding us, accompanying us, and participating with us all the way to a peaceful Asia as the base of peaceful world. Friends, now we have with us, we will hear from Mrs. Tara Gandhi Bhattacharya, granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi. She was born in 1934 in New Delhi. Mrs. Tara Gandhi Bhattacharya has held the position of Vice Chairperson of the Gandhi Smriti and Darshan Smriti for nearly 9 years. Gandhi Smriti is the site of the martyrdom of Mahatma Gandhi for truth and non-violence. She is also involved with the Save the Ganga movement, an initiative to protect India's environment and rivers for the last 18 years. For the past 28 years, she has worked for the Kasturba Gandhi National Memorial Trust, KGNMT, founded by Mahatma Gandhi in memory of his wife. The KGNMT is one of the oldest pre-independence non-government institutions serving the women and children of rural India. She has been decorated with one of the France's top honor, l'Ordre des Arts et Lettres, for her contribution in promoting peace, solidarity, culture, education, and development. She is now the chairperson of National Gandhi Museum. Unfortunately, due to her health condition, she is not here to deliver her speech physically, but she has given us a recorded speech that we will now hear.
It is a privilege and honor for me to be included in this event of the World Humanist Forum. We are all together here to talk about peace, to think about peace, and how to work towards peace. Recently, in the last few years, we have seen the violence of nature. We have seen the violence of man, and it has shaken the soul of the human being. We have been asking ourselves, where have we gone wrong? We have certainly gone wrong. And I think it is the responsibility now of the citizens of the world to unite together. Citizens of Asia, a message from them will definitely have a great impact, a collective impact on the entire human society of the world. Some years ago, I had the very special privilege of listening to His Holiness Papa Francesco in the Holy City at Vatican. And he said in about 5 different languages, continuously he said, the Creator always forgives, but what is created never forgives. So please treat the environment and life with respect, because they don't forgive you. Creator will forgive you, but what is created around you will never forgive you. That somehow had a deep effect on me, and I've been talking about it during the corona pandemic, and we're still in the middle of it. Now again this war has erupted for no reason. Every time you open the television, they
So there cannot hear.
Can't hear anything.
Yeah, that translation thing has opened and therefore this thing has
all the
gone.
rivers.
It will come back.
We have polluted all the 4 elements, and the 5th element is the unknown, the space. Let's hope that we don't pollute that with the negativity of our mind. It's a very special idea, great concept, that a message of Asia Peace Forum to get together to the world. Now, right now, to the beautiful lands of Ukraine and Russia, where the people are suffering. I mean, so sitting here, it's easy to take a stand, I'm against Russia or I'm for Ukraine. I'm really for the people who are suffering in Ukraine as well as in Russia. I heard some beautiful stories from Italy saying that Italians, and so many of them, have gone to the border on Poland and opened and said that we have opened our houses, please come. I can give hospitality to 4 people. I can give to 6 people. I can give hospitality to 10 people. Please come and be part of our family. But these are such moving stories. And the other moving stories are that people in Ukraine have said, in Kyiv, that women have said, we will not move from here because we have to look after our own people and also the Russian soldiers who are innocent. They are killing because they have orders from the top that you go and kill. So people are killing who have no desire to kill. Somebody orders a group of people, go and kill those people. So those who are killing are innocent, those who are killed are of course innocent. And look at the tragedy it has caused. I believe those cities are beautiful, of Kiev and other parts of Ukraine, I believe, are just absolutely stunningly beautiful. Museums are getting lost. And another moving story, that a director of a museum, instead of worrying about his life and family, he has been working to save, to protect all the paintings and all the heritage and the statues so that they don't get destroyed. What comes out of this war? If there is a message of peace, and if a collective message from Asia for those who believe in peace, a peace not in a very static way, in a very constructive way, it will have a great effect on the whole world. And by peace, let me think of Gandhi's philosophy. I am not a scholar, I don't read very much, but my 88 years of experience, that has given me some kind of ideas, and I'm talking on the basis of my own ideas. I think if we can all get together and realize that peace for peace, let it be constructive. Let us talk of exchange of art, culture, music, a lot of emphasis on that, so that the other things get totally aside. as I thought in Kashmir a few years ago, I had gone there. And I said that instead of, and I had heard, I don't know which government it was, I'm not a politician and I'm not interested in the governments. Because Gandhi's fight, let us be, and our own struggle at this time is the citizens' fight. It is not a political or a government initiative. And I said that all these, I had heard that some young people are all in the prison. And it suddenly occurred to me that why should they not be employed to clean the roads, the streets, and clean up Srinagar? So that would be constructive. So let us now, talking about peace, just peace by itself means don't kill someone. That is not enough. Peace should rest in the mind so that environment is with peace. Now for that we need to do constructive work, exchange of music, exchange of literature, exchange of friendship, laughter, like giving hospitality to people who are coming from other lands, getting together, food. Let us think of hundreds of ways which bring people together, and that would be a constructive way to be together. What about languages? I'm sure I'm talking to many different people who represent thousands of languages. If you could learn each other's language, that also would bring us together. So there are so many ways. I cannot think of all the ways, but of getting together. So my particular emphasis would be peace with a constructive message to the whole world. And let us save the children, the youth of the world. It is our great responsibility today to reach out to the children and the youth of the world because they are the future. It depends on senior people like me. Well, of course, I'm very old, but there are others also who are quite senior. To give the right example to the youth and the children because they represent the future. Today's terrorists are so violent because they have gone through brutal childhood. Let us give every child, every youth a beautiful memory for future so he doesn't become a terrorist. Example of compassion, example of responsibility. As His Holiness Dalai Lama once told me, I said, don't you think, Your Holiness, that boys should also have examples of compassion? He said, yes, girl child and boy child both. They should also have a sense of responsibility. Let us all get together and let us give good example, the right example to the children and the youth of the human society for the right future for our children and the future generations. Thank you.
Friends, we are sorry for the technological glitches that we saw in between, but we all heard what she said. To me personally, whenever I meet her, whenever I see her, I see Mahatma Gandhi alive. She brings us the whole perspective of nonviolence and also a way forward by very simple things like sharing languages, sharing culture, sharing food, sharing art, sharing music, things that people can start doing it and get connecting with each other. Having myself traveled and lived in different parts of the country, I can vouch for one thing that when we learn different languages and speak to people in their languages, they literally fall in love with you. Everyone likes the others to speak in one's own language. It's a fantastic gesture with which we can connect with each other. Now I invite Mr. Tony Robinson, a humanist peace and nonviolence activist, to present his talk on the current issue of war and peace. A brief introduction about Tony. Tony is a humanist movement activist, editor with Presenza, director of the Middle East Treaty Organization, Coordinating Committee member of Abolition 2000, Global Network to Eliminate Nuclear Weapons, author of the book Coffee with Silo and the Quest for Meaning in Life, and he's also the producer of the film The Beginning of the End of Nuclear Weapons. Tony Robinson.
Thank you very much, Sudhir. Many thanks to the organizers of this event for inviting me to speak today. Greetings to the other panelists and to everyone who has joined online to hear these hopefully interesting and thought-provoking interventions. As has been said in the introduction, I'm an activist for peace through the path of active nonviolence, and I have spent well over 30 years of my life on this path. In the year 2006, this activism became focused on one particular topic, namely the dangers of nuclear weapons and the need to eliminate them. I grew up in the English countryside in the 1980s. It was the height of the Cold War, and we were terrified by the prospects of nuclear war in Europe. Anyone who saw the film Threads in 1984, which depicts the impacts of nuclear detonations on the city of Sheffield, which is 1.5 hours north by car from where I lived, was traumatized by the images. It was a similarly themed film, The Day After, which was set in the states of Kansas and Missouri in the United States, that convinced President Reagan to start talking to President Gorbachev about nuclear disarmament. And in Iceland in 1986, there was almost an agreement to dismantle all nuclear weapons completely. If that had happened, I wouldn't be on this panel now, but sadly that didn't happen. We are now 77 years since the first nuclear bombs were detonated on the Asian cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing an estimated 210,000 people as a result of the force of the explosions and the fires. Almost 50% of the official populations of those cities at the time, with up to 500,000 more people dying over the following decades as a result of radiation sicknesses and various forms of cancers. This includes the children and grandchildren of those initial survivors. Now, the survivors of those atrocities are fewer and fewer every year. The youngest witnesses to those events are 90 years old. All but a few survivors and anti-nuclear activists now understand the full horror of nuclear weapons. Yet there are 9 countries in the world who possess nuclear weapons. 6 of these are located on or straddle the Asian continent: Russia, China, Israel, India, Pakistan, and North Korea. Although there are no certain figures because governments refuse to be transparent about their ability to mass murder civilians in their millions, what the experts at the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute found last year in 2021 is that these 6 countries have between them 7,056 nuclear weapons, unequally distributed between Russia with 6,255, China with 350, Israel with 90, India with 156, Pakistan with 165, and North Korea with an estimated 40. Each and every one of these bombs has a strength greater than those dropped in 1945. And remember, those 2 small bombs on 2 relatively small cities killed half of the population instantly. However, we don't need to have a nuclear war in order to understand intellectually what nuclear weapons would do in today's world, because friends from International Physicians for the Prevention of Nuclear War published an alarming study in 2012 and updated it 1 year later in 2013. The report was titled Nuclear Famine, the 2 billion people at risk, and I'm just going to put the link to it in the chat box here for anyone who might want to read it later. This report describes the effects of a hypothetical nuclear conflict between 2 small nuclear powers, namely India and Pakistan. Their scenario imagines that a conflict between these 2 countries goes nuclear and that both sides use 50 missiles of a similar power to those used in Japan, targeted at each other's major cities. Remember, they don't make missiles that small anymore. It is estimated that 100 missiles on 100 cities causes 100 firestorms. 20 million people would die in the first week as a result of the explosions, the fires, and radiation sickness. This of itself is horrifying enough, but that's just the start. The firestorms would launch an estimated 5.5 million tons of black soot into the atmosphere. This soot blocks out the sun, cools the planet, dries it out because there's less precipitation, because less water evaporates, and this shortens the growing season. On top of that, the ozone layer would be damaged, allowing dangerous UV radiation to reach the Earth's surface. The impact on the growing season would have a profound effect on food production all over the globe, not just in South Asia, but in Africa, Latin America, China, Russia, the United States, Europe. The world's wheat fields, paddy fields, cornfields, and everything else within 1 year are producing significantly less of the food they were producing before. Corn and soybean production in the United States drops by 10%. Chinese rice drops by up to 20%. Chinese wheat by 50%. The list goes on. There are currently just under 1 billion people on the planet who are malnourished, consuming less than 1,750 calories a day. These people have the least power to control their own destinies and access food. Immediately, these people are at risk of starvation and will starve. But with these types of drops in food production, hundreds of millions more are dumped into malnutrition, fighting for their very survival. As a result of this, the limited war, in which 100 of the 13,000 nuclear weapons we have on the planet are used, this would trigger a worldwide famine, putting up to 2 billion people at risk of starvation. This is unprecedented in history. It is the end of civilization as we know it. Everything that we hold dear, everything that we love and cherish is gone. What value does money have in such a situation? Can you eat it? What value will other human beings have for you when you're hungry? Who will respect the rule of law when you don't know if you're going to eat tomorrow? Who is going to stand in line patiently to pay for groceries at the market? Take a moment and think about what you would do the moment you hear that a nuclear war has broken out in any part of the world. And if you're living close to where one of these bombs has been detonated, you're completely screwed. Your mobile phone won't work anymore because the electromagnetic pulse that was unleashed by the bomb will bring down electricity and telecommunication grids. You'll be in the dark and in silence, literally. Not knowing what is happening in the outside world, not knowing if any kind of humanitarian relief will come. And in reality, there will be no humanitarian relief. The International Committee of the Red Cross reported to the 2013 conference on the humanitarian impacts of nuclear weapons in Oslo, Norway, that there is no possible humanitarian response that can be given in the case of nuclear war. In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 90% of medical facilities were destroyed by the two bombs. In Hiroshima, out of 300 doctors in the city that day, 270 of them were killed. Out of 1,700 nurses, 1,600 of them were killed. Which countries will send humanitarian relief? What facilities will they work in? How will they be able to protect their workers from the radiation fallout, which will cover everything in radioactive dust? How will they access the power to run their machines? How will they be able to bring food for their own sustenance, knowing that those they treat will not have access to it? The whole thing is unthinkable and must be prevented. But this is not even close to the end of the horror that will be unleashed. Including the whole of Russia, Asia is home to 174 operable nuclear power stations. China has 53, Russia 37, Japan 33, South Korea 24, India 23, and Pakistan 5. On top of this, there are smaller scale research reactors in Bangladesh, China, India, Indonesia, Japan, Kazakhstan, South Korea, North Korea, Malaysia, Pakistan, Vietnam, Iran, and Israel, with others in development in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Nuclear power stations are dependent on an unceasing supply of electricity to keep water pumping in order to keep the whole thing cool enough. As previously mentioned, the disruption to electricity grids as a result of electromagnetic pulses from the bombs themselves will cause those power stations to be without electricity from the grid. They all have backup systems which will allow operators to keep their facilities cool for a short time, but eventually those power stations that go offline will not be able to keep the reactors cool enough, and there will be meltdowns and explosions. Each one of the 174 operable power stations is another Chernobyl, another Fukushima waiting to happen. In this case, though, there is no one coming to risk their lives to cover the melted nuclear fuel as those brave Soviet and Japanese technicians and engineers did in their day. Radiation will be spewed into the atmosphere. A typical power plant generating 1,000 megawatts of electricity contains 100 tons of uranium. This will all be spewed into the atmosphere. To put that into context, the Hiroshima bomb, which was responsible for tens of thousands of deaths through radiation poisoning in the weeks and months after the bombing, contained only 64 kilograms. Even one nuclear power station going out of control like this has the potential to make the whole planet radioactive. As a reminder, for those who may not know because of the distance in time and geography, there are parts of Scotland, which is 1,700 miles away from Chernobyl, that for years were unable to be used for food production because of the heightened levels of radioactive isotopes in the soil. This is not fiction or scaremongering. A few weeks ago in Ukraine, alarm was caused when electricity supply problems affected the Zaporizhzhia power station, which has 2 functioning nuclear reactors. It was estimated that there was enough backup systems in place to keep the plant safe for 3 weeks. For those who may have lost interest, there is still a war being waged in the Ukraine. Ukraine has 15 operable nuclear reactors. Damage to any of them, either accidental or intentional, will be an absolute catastrophe. As I was writing this yesterday and rereading this section of my presentation, I became nervous because I thought I might be scaring people with this information. But in reality, we all need to be afraid. Nuclear technology is dangerous and obsolete. It would be dangerous enough even in a world in which all countries are at peace with one another. In this world, nuclear technology is utterly foolhardy. In the 1980s, a peace movement made up of millions of terrified people on both sides of the Berlin Wall was able to mobilize and bring the superpowers of the time together to bring an end to the Cold War and a massive reduction in nuclear weapons from over 70,000 down to 13,000 today. But as I have just explained, 100 nuclear weapons targeted on cities will bring an end to civilization. Of course, an exchange of hundreds of weapons in the hands of the United States and Russia will bring all forms of life on the planet to a terrifying and painful end. Did evolution really take us from a bunch of amino acids in our primeval seas to the levels of consciousness exhibited by human beings today for us to end it all like this? However, now for the better news. Oblivion for the human race in a nuclear holocaust is not our predetermined destination. There is hope for a better future. Those signs of hope are very weak at the moment, but they are there. At an international and diplomatic level, a growing number of countries around the world are waking up to the dangers. As I mentioned before, in 2013, a conference in Oslo started to look at the most up-to-date information there exists on the impacts of nuclear weapons. It was followed up by other conferences in Mexico and Austria. And a result of that, in 2017, 122 members of the United Nations agreed on the text of a treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons. The use and threat of use of nuclear weapons was already illegal under the Geneva Conventions and international humanitarian law, which have been in force for decades. But the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons categorically and explicitly states that nuclear weapons are banned. It was a turning point in nuclear weapon diplomacy. Of course, the 9 countries with nuclear weapons refused to participate, and neither did most of their allies in military alliances. Yet a message was sent, and the 9 nuclear weapon states complained loudly and bitterly about it. Those 122 countries took the first steps in making nuclear weapons taboo and stigmatized them. Public opinion has been changing similarly. And Sudhir, there's some background noise going on.
Sudhir bhai, the host has to mute them.
Public opinion has been changing similarly, with survey after survey showing that nuclear weapons should be abolished, even and especially in those countries that claim the need for them in their national security doctrines. Financial institutions have been moving their money from companies that allow nuclear weapon manufacturers to operate. There is slowly a momentum growing to eliminate nuclear weapons, although it remains to be seen what the effect of the Russian invasion of Ukraine will be on public opinion. But the work of the peace movement has to be in moving governments with nuclear weapons to give them up and to phase out their nuclear power. This will only happen through raising awareness of the dangers of nuclear weapons.
Participants, please keep yourself on mute so that the speaker can be heard by everybody.
This World Humanist Forum in Asia is thus very welcome, because it is only through reaching out, networking, and educating ourselves on important issues such as this that we will be able to create the change in human consciousness that is urgently required if we are to avoid nuclear winter. Let us be clear. The paradigms of the global system in which we live have created the situation we're in now. And it will not be until those paradigms have changed that we have the chance to change the course of human civilization. But what is the central paradigm on which our global society is based? I'm sure you all know it. The most important value in this society is money. The difference between having it and not having it is literally the difference between living and dying. This is the only reason why nuclear weapons exist. We have taken money from being a simple tool for exchanging goods and services, and we have turned it into something that must be accumulated at all costs to our own well-being, but more importantly to the well-being of every other human being and all forms of life on this planet. In order for some to be able to acquire offensive amounts of money, amounts that it would take several lifetimes to spend, they must have access to the strongest forms of violence in order to impose their will on others. This violence comes in many forms: economic, psychological, sexual, etc. But the worst form is the physical violence. And the worst form of physical violence today is nuclear weapons. This forum, focusing on the Asian region, if it is going to make a useful contribution to the peace movement, has got to work on changing the paradigms on which our societies are based. And what we will find in the process is that all the myriad forms of social activism that exist in the world today are all expressions of the same discontent with the overriding paradigm on which our society is based. Women's emancipation, poverty, environmental destruction, climate change, peace, children's rights, the fight for sexual diversity and different sexualities. The list goes on and on. All of these themes are calling for the same thing: put human life as the central value and return money to being the benign tool that it has been for the vast majority of human history. We don't have much time to change the course of history. The climate is changing at a rapid pace, and countries are not doing even a fraction of what they could to stop it. I wish this forum the best of success. I look forward to hearing from the other panelists, and I'll be happy to take questions if time allows. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. You have given us a very interesting and a warning which is not just timely, but I think we are very late for that warning if we don't behave as a human society. There is no doubt about it that if the nuclear war happens, we are finished. And even if the war does not happen, the nuclear power reactors are finishing life literally at a speed that we don't see with our eyes today unless we become aware of this. Thank you very much for these very well put words with the data and information. That is certainly something that people should look at very closely. Now, we will have a slight change in the list of speakers due to the emergency in Sri Lanka. There are troubles there, and our speaker, Dr. Vinaya S. Areratne, has somehow joined us. So we will hear Mr. Kumar Ketkar later on, and I will invite Dr. Vijay Areratna to make us richer by his experiential remarks on this occasion. Dr. Vinaya S. Areratna is the General Secretary of Sarvodaya in Sri Lanka and also a lecturer in Community Medicine Facility of Medical Science University of Sri Jayawardhanapura in Sri Lanka. He is a medical doctor by profession. He is a worthy son of Dr. A.T. Areratna, the founder and president of the Sarvodaya Shramadana movement in Sri Lanka. I invite Dr. Vinaya Ratna to give us his presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Sudhir. I am joining you all at a very challenging time for Sri Lanka. So I'm very lucky today that we are able to join, because until 1 hour ago, all social media were banned in Sri Lanka, and we are under emergency rule now, and we have an ongoing curfew until tomorrow morning. All this is a response from a state which has become very concerned about non-violent protests that have been taking place during the last few days, because we are facing a very serious economic crisis, the worst crisis since independence. We have, we are experiencing a shortage of fuel and also gas, and also a shortage of food items and rising cost of living due to foreign exchange shortage that the country is facing. So I represent the Sarvodaya Shramadana movement, which is a development, humanitarian and peace building organization in Sri Lanka, which is founded on Buddhist and Gandhian principles and which had been around for the last 63 years. And Sri Lanka is a country, as you all probably know, which has faced an internal armed conflict, a very violent armed conflict, which claimed the lives of more than 60,000-70,000 people over a period of 26 years. And there had been serious impact on the lives and livelihoods of people. And the war ended in 2009, again, not through negotiations or through peaceful means, but through a comprehensive military victory over the separatist group Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. However, despite the violent phase of the armed conflict being ended in 2009, we failed to achieve lasting peace. Nearly 12 years have passed since the end of the war, but we could not address the the root causes that led to the violent conflict of Sri Lanka, which claimed the lives of many young people. 2-3 generations sacrificed their lives for the cause that they believed. And we, as a humanitarian and peace building organization, have been active on the ground from the beginning, even before the war started, we were building bridges between the different communities living in Sri Lanka, Tamil, Sinhala, Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, and Islamic communities. And we continue to this date our struggle to build peace in Sri Lanka. So if I look back our journey and where we are currently, where we are right now, nonviolent direct action to stop war, stop violence has always been a mainstay of our work. At the same time, we believe in an integrated and a holistic approach, which is based on spiritual awakening, moral awakening, and cultural awakening, which should accompany social, economic, and political awakening. We see a lot of crises around us at the moment, and we are it is being manifested in different forms, and the economic crisis we are facing is one manifestation of this crisis. Our approach to peace building in Sri Lanka has always been, we start the process by within ourselves, the spiritual dimension of it, the inner peace aspect of it. And always we believed in action by ordinary people, where we connect with each other at different levels and also try to form collective action. We have organized mass meditations, peace action through peace
There
walk.
seems to be a minor glitch. We are coming back in a moment.
Can you hear me?
Sudhir, I can hear everything perfectly.
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
I'll continue. Because we were not able to get our polity right, I think this is something that we as nations face today. Our politicians, our rulers have failed us. They have been working only on their self-interest.
Perdonad, a ver, solo uno de los dos, no los dos a la vez. O sea, Brenda o Antonio, pero no los dos traduciendo a la vez.
Sorry, there's an interruption. Should I continue or?
O sea, Brenda sigue hablando. Y Antonio.
Can admin please mute
continue.
everybody except the speaker? Admin needs to do this. Please mute everybody.
The host, there is no admin, there is a host.
Okay, so I'll continue. So what I was saying was that we didn't get our polity right. So even though as civil society groups and as peace activists, we were doing a lot to create this mass consciousness, the spiritual consciousness to prevent violence in our societies, we could not come up with a system where the governance in the country could be fair by every citizen, every different group living in the country. So we are in that struggle even now. The second point is that we all know that people's lives are very much connected to the economy, how we satisfy our basic needs. So since independence in 1948, the economic model that we have been following, although Sri Lanka is a model in terms of achieving excellent health and social indicators, in terms of our well-being, we are much comparatively better than our South Asian neighbors. However, we will not be able to sustain all these achievements unless we have a much fairer economic system. Even before the COVID-19 hit us, there had been many disparities between different communities, between different socioeconomic strata, between different geographic regions. We have been trying to introduce as a development organization the concept of Gram Swaraj, the Gandhian concept of Gram Swaraj, where we believe that if you have devolved governance at a lowest level, the micro level, then there will be a better way to contribute to the economy, national economy, and sustain and also meet the basic needs of people. So for 63 years, Sarvodaya has been working on this principle of devolved governance, and which would create democracy at a grassroots level. So even before the war, during the war, and after the war, we still believe that this devolved model of governance and economics is the way forward, which is built on a spiritual foundation. So out of 38,000 villages in Sri Lanka, we have been able to reach about 15,000 villages over 63 years. Before the COVID-19, we had these decentralized village organizations because still we don't have in our constitution, these devolved mechanisms, the lowest level of governance is local government bodies. Unlike in India, where you get Panchayat Raj kind of system, we are advocating for a change in our constitution to make this Gram Swaraj a reality. And we have been fighting for that for more than 6 decades now. And through these devolved village organizations, we have been able to provide economic opportunities for young people who would have otherwise been attracted to violence. So we were able to mobilize hundreds and thousands of young people through peace building work, what we even call Shanti Sena movement, and also giving them economic opportunities. And today we feel the need for such kind of integrated approach where we give hope for our young people, because if we are to build peace, there has to be a good economic, there has to be economic well-being of the people. So the political economy is connected, as we all know. So we have been struggling with the impact of COVID-19 the last 2 years. And during that time, Sarvodaya was able to be again a national force where we were meeting the needs of most vulnerable communities in the country. When there were lockdowns, they were very negatively impacted. So we had this whole concept of sharing, Shramadana, sharing of your labor, sharing of your wealth, sharing of your knowledge, sharing of your compassion, all that to put together, really bringing out volunteerism in the people to help the people affected by the economic impact. Then we were also working on really strengthening that alternative economic system based on this devolved governance system of Gram Swaraj. And today, when we are facing this massive economic crisis in Sri Lanka, we still believe that if we had a very more formal and accepted system where the principle of subsidiarity is being practiced even in economic entities, clusters of villages where the supply and demand for quality products is met through a just economic system, the impact, the national impact of the economic crisis would also have been much less. So there's a long way for us to move forward. I think the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi and also the great religious traditions is more than ever before relevant to what we are doing, what's happening here today. Now, connecting with the regional, and I'll finish with this regional and international context. I think it's very, very important for us to bring in this the spiritual dimension. We have to connect as human beings, ordinary human beings, through our compassion, our metta, and also connect at a level of spiritual consciousness as the foundation for all our work. Now we know that regional power politics is affecting our region. The different forces aligned with different international economic systems are very much having influence in our country's affairs, both politically and economically. It's very sad, and people have started to express their discontent on this because they have seen how the gap between the rich and the poor getting widened, and we are seeing in front of our own eyes how this unjust governance system, unjust political system, unjust economic system is claiming lives of the people. But we have a lot of hope for our country. We still love our country and our people, and we all are united at this moment as a people, Sinhala, Tamil, Muslim, Burgher, all different kinds of people living in this in our country today. And we have demonstrated, now the government has just relaxed the restrictions that the government has put on social media. It's purely because of the people's power. We are seeing right now the reports are coming, even though there is a curfew, non-violently people went out and confronted security forces, confronted the police, just in the Gandhian tradition, standing very silently in front of those forces bravely and convincing them, you are also part of our family, a part of our nation. Your children are also suffering right now. So please do not point your gun against your own people. And it has been effective so far, except for the little violence, which was again orchestrated by the state or some extremist elements, we have not had any major incidents. So, but the day starting from tomorrow is going to be very critical for the country, for our country. So we would very much expect solidarity from all of you, support and send your spiritual energy to us. And we are committed to a non-violent social change in Sri Lanka, so that we also contribute to building peace in the South Asian region and also the whole world. I thank the World Humanist Forum for giving me this opportunity to share our experience today. And I'm very happy that I was able to conclude this without interruption from internet or from electricity, because we are having 10 to 13 hour power cuts daily. Thank you very much, and metta to all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Vinaya Areratna. Thank you for many things. First of all, thank you for being with us in spite of the grave difficulties and difficult situation all around you, and where you are playing a very strong role in managing things through non-violence around you. Thank you for making things so clear. And friends, the situation in Sri Lanka is not something exclusive to Sri Lanka. What he said as the failed polity, the failed system, the failed economy, this is happening everywhere for the simple reason that the neoliberals have taken over the economy of various countries across the world, and they suck the money, the capital, the wealth of the system out of the country, away from the people, and the country is left without anything. What is happening in Sri Lanka is not the fault of the citizens of Sri Lanka. And the same thing can happen anywhere and anytime. I'm sure 3 days ago or 2 days ago, people in Sri Lanka did not expect what has happened since last night. The curfew, the cut of the internet and all that, and the worst things could come. We will surely send our well-being. We will do an asking at the end of this, in fact. And we are all with you, Mr. Vinaya Areratna, just like you are all with us, and we are all in it together. This is a warning, the right time warning, that we must bring peace across Asia. And when we say peace across Asia, because this is the region that has given the major proponents of non-violence to the world. And this can become the bridge, the base of non-violence across the world. Now, let us hear the recorded speech of Mr. Kumar Ketkar, who is a distinguished journalist and member of Indian Parliament. We will hear the recording from him because right now he happens to be in a flight to Mumbai and hence could not be physically with us. Kumar Ketkar is an Indian writer, politician, and former journalist. He is the chief editor of Dainik Divya Marathi. He started his journalistic career with the Economic Times, and he has also been an editor-in-chief of Marathi newspaper Lok Satta. He has also worked with the Observer and the Maharashtra Times. His topic is People's Initiative for Peace. I will share his video in a moment.
Necessary to understand at the outset. Today, the world is going through turbulence like just before the First World War or just before the Second World War. Nobody knows whether we are heading for a Third World War, and if that Third World War, if at all it comes, whether it will be nuclear or conventional. But the point is, the threat of war does exist, nuclear or conventional, and it is quite global. It appeared during the Cold War that there was a balance of power and the war was unlikely. Third World War could be avoided because there were two superpowers almost equally balanced. But the world has changed. In last about 50 years, the world has radically changed. And the First and the Second World War, the theater was Europe. Now for the first time, even Asia is coming in the war zone. It is because of China's expansionism, Pakistan's intolerance, India's aggressive Hindutva, and so many other factors which are troubling the South Asia particularly, and Asia in general, has created a situation not only of turbulence, but enormous amount of tension. Therefore, it is urgently necessary that we maintain peace, and that peace can be achieved only if the people of the continent, people of the entire Asian continent realize that the threat today is more than in Europe and only in Asia. We have to be tolerant towards each other. We have to be negotiating things if there are conflicts. Instead of that, what we are seeing is everybody asserting his identitarian position. In India, there is a wave of Hindutva and a hate for Pakistan and Muslims, which can create a situation like civil war between Hindus and Muslims and between various federal states and the center. I don't think this is an imaginary situation. It is a distinct possibility that India could head for balkanization of the South Asian systems, and therefore, just as in Pakistan, there are tensions between Balochistan and Pakistan and Sindh and Pakistan center. Similarly, in India, there are tensions between various states. Now, so there is a twofold question. One is within India, and second is within Asia. Now, Asia and again within Asia, within South Asia. So Asian peace effort is most necessary because almost nearly 65% of the population lives only in the Asian subcontinent and Asia in general. And therefore, if the war does happen, it will be annihilation of a very large population and mankind. And therefore, not only Europe, we should be of course worried about Russia and Ukraine. We should of course be worried about Afghanistan and America. But Afghanistan is part of Asia and America is outside Afghanistan, outside Asia. Therefore, it is necessary that Asians come together to maintain peace, to take initiative for the peace. Because the world war was fashioned in Europe, but the neo-colonial countries were trying to impose their system, their philosophy, their thoughts on Asia, and that's why Asia came in trouble. We have to recognize that the interests of the West will be protected, promoted, and propagated if Asia has conflict. The majority of the military-industrial complex is in the West, and majority of the consumers of the armaments are in the Asian subcontinent or Asia. And therefore, Asia has more responsibility of taking arms and not taking arms, and using arms and not using arms. It is entirely up to the Asian countries. Asian countries today have maximum number of weapons, and those weapons can destroy not only Asia, but the whole world. I don't understand why military-industrial complex does not understand the threat that if the war really develops, it will also destroy much of Europe, because Europe cannot be completely isolated from the nuclear weapons, even if the nuclear war takes place between, say, India and Pakistan. I think it is necessary, just like Israel. Now, Israel, Arab countries are part of Africa, but Iran is part of Asia, and Israel, Palestine also are in trouble. So the conflict between Israel and Palestine, conflict between Iran and Middle Eastern countries, conflict between India and Pakistan are the tension points, and these tension points can actually engulf the whole world. And therefore, it is urgently necessary that humanism prevails. And humanist ideology has lots of roots in India and in Asia in general because of the Buddhist foundation, because of Gandhian philosophy. But unfortunately, neither the Gandhian philosophy has been able to stop the Hindutva movement, nor the Buddhist philosophy has been able to stall the process of war in rest of Asia, where majority of the countries were Buddhist, whether it is China, Japan, Vietnam, Cambodia, and so on and so forth. So it is necessary to revive those philosophies of the past, of Buddhism on the one hand and Gandhism of the recent kind, to reunite the Asian population. It is not as if the Asian population was always united or integrated, but it's time for us, if this century is supposed to be there, a peaceful century. It is about nearly 78 years remain for the end of the century. There are pessimistic people, or you can say doomsday people, who say that this is going to be the final century. We have to defeat those pessimists. We have to defeat those doomsday theorists. and take a lead in the world to maintain peace. Asia perhaps can lead the world in organizing peace, maintaining peace, and creating a proper atmosphere for the next century. But for that, we as people have to learn. We as people have to learn, not just the governments, not just the systems, but the people must bring pressure on the respective authorities to maintain peace and promote the idea of peace and philosophy and tranquility. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar Ketkar, for a very, very well organized guidance, giving the reasons for Asia to come together. From an arms consumer, the Asia needs to become an exporter of peace, for which Asia needs to have peace within it. This gives us a confirmation, and we like it, that our initiative is in the right direction. Friends, we have one more problem with one of our speaker, Dr. Professor MP Mathai. There is a storm for last 3 hours in his vicinity, and internet has been stopped, so he's not able to join us. So we will jump over to next speaker, hoping that this storm gets over and Dr. Mathai is able to join us shortly. And our next speaker, friends, is Dr. S. Chaminda Padmakumara, a professor of Department of International Relations from Colombo University. He has also been fortunately able to join us in spite of the problems in Sri Lanka right now. His expertise in the field of international relations will be definite importance for us to help us understand the dynamics of the international relations so that we can build a way forward for peace. His topic is Peace from Human Security Perspective. Dr. Chaminda Padmakumara.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry that I'm unable to turn on my camera. I apologize for that. Let me briefly introduce my topic and myself. As World Humanist Forum Asia introduced me, I'm the Chaminda Padmakumara from the Department of International Relations, University of Colombo, Sri Lanka. First, I would like to thank World Humanist Forum Asia for giving this valuable opportunity to share my thoughts and experience. And also, I appreciate your genuine commitments to promote peace, humanism, and nonviolence. As a citizen from Sri Lanka, which has experienced a civil war for nearly 3 decades, I would like to say that peace and humanism are the most precious things we can have in our lives and societies. They subsume utmost importance in our lives and societies. During those 30 years, people lived with fear, uncertainty, and had no hopes about their future in Sri Lanka. A large number of lives, opportunities, and properties were lost due to the civil war. With these opening remarks, let me start my presentation on peace from human security perspective. In my presentation, I will explain and highlight the role of human security in promoting and sustaining peace, because now the world, and specifically our region, South Asia, needs a very comprehensive and pragmatic approach to achieve peace. So therefore, in my presentation, I will highlight how we can integrate psychological aspects of peace and also the material aspect of peace. So therefore, in my presentation, I'm planning to offer a new model, a pragmatic framework to sustain peace in the world. First, let me briefly explain why I have chosen this topic. As you know, the idea of peace is defined in multiple ways, and there's no precise or a common consensus on the term. Somehow, we know the core meaning of the concept of peace. In general, we understand peace as something opposite to wars and conflicts. It is a harmonious situation in the absence of hostility and violence. In this context, we need to understand that the peace is not mere absence of wars, conflicts, or violence. Instead, the term should be broadly defined to include different manifestations of peace and emerging challenges to the peace. When we consider today's world, it is affected by an array of profound and interconnected threats that not only accelerate complex power dynamics which endanger peace, but also increase war, violence, conflicts, human rights violations, and economic inequalities. Therefore, peace in a country or a society is determined by multiple forces. For instance, the struggle for the right to life and human dignity, self-determination, freedom of expression, freedom of religion and belief, along with freedom from both political subjugation and increased militarization. Economic inequalities are the important manifestations of people's quest for peace with justice and security. Not only these forces, human development and equal economic and social opportunities are also determine peace. With this multifaceted nature of the peace, I argue that peace needs to be understood through a holistic framework. In this context, I believe that the concept of human security becomes more important since it ensures safety of the people through various aspects. Instead of traditional state-centric military-driven security, human security focuses on the security of people. It is a people-centric approach and minimize the vulnerabilities of individuals to a greater extent and reduce potentials of occurring conflicts and wars. I personally believe that peace should be entrusted with both psychological and material needs of the people. People should feel that they are physically and materially peaceful. Human security means protecting fundamental freedoms, freedoms that are essence of life. It means protecting people from critical and widespread threats and situations. Human security integrates three major freedoms: freedom from fear, freedom from want, and the freedom from indignity. Indeed, these three freedoms ensure that people are both subjectively and objectively peaceful. When people have freedom from sources of fear, such as wars, conflict, disputes, and terrorism, they would become internally peaceful. And also when people are given material needs, when their welfare requirements are fulfilled, giving healthy and sufficient food, shelter, and equal economic opportunities and employment opportunities, the peace they have gained internally will be sustained. So therefore, I argue that peace is something to be sustained, achieved through both in subjective and objective manner. Under the components of human security, economic security, food security, health security, environmental security, personal security, community security, and also the political security. So these ideas and the components become more important to achieve peace. And also we believe that human security is an integrated approach. So it will help nations to achieve inclusive peace, and also it will help people to be included and to give equal opportunities. I can clearly say that human security can prevent societies and individuals from violence and conflicts as it minimizes the forces of structural violence. what we experience in South Asia, in today's societies, people are excluded in different ways. And some people are not given equal opportunities. And the borders we observe in the today world is not only physical borders that divide countries. So when it comes to extreme poverty and when it comes to social inequalities, today people are demarcated in different borders as well. So this is the existing reality in the world. So in addition, the human security makes sure that sources of conflicts are well managed through the assurance of human security. As South Asians, I strongly believe that we should promote human security to sustain peace in the region. In this sense, all components of the human security become important. Therefore, I suggest that peace need to be studied and understood in both subjective and objective means. And also, the concept of human security has great relevance to peace as it can sustain peace in societies and prevent them from the sources of structural violence and vulnerabilities. With this, I conclude that peace need to build and sustain through a holistic framework. For that, I suggest human security has great relevance. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. I believe this forum will promote Asian solidarity to promote peace in Asia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Padma Kumar, for your very interesting way of putting things in a framework, which is very important to build policies, to build the infrastructure. And I'm sure this will be of very use to the whole team and everybody who joins us in building peaceful Asia. You have also given a new perspective of clarity to the need of peace across Asia. And we are also thankful to you especially for joining us in spite of the very difficult situations that are all around you. And we wish that this situation change very quickly. And we will do our part of whatever we can do from different parts of Asia for that. Friends, it is not easy being a rationalist in a city like Pune, or for that matter, anywhere these days. It is even more difficult, perhaps, to be one striving for a more liberal Islam at a time the community sees itself under a threat. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Dr. Professor Shamsuddin Tamboli, the president of Pune's Muslim Satyashodak Mandal, working on reforms in Islam, among other issues. Let us hear from him about the topic of culture and history of peace in Asia. Dr. Shamsuddin Tamboli.
Thank you very much, Sudhirji. Dear peace-loving brothers and sisters, World Humanist Forum Asia has brought us together to discuss on peace. This is the conference, a unique conference in which all distinguished speakers, distinguished organizers, and as well as distinguished participants have joined today. For more than 1.5 hours, we have been discussing on this topic. There are many speakers, there are participants from different countries, as well as there are representatives of different organizations also. And I would like to mention one organization who has taken part in this, our peace conference, is World Peace Mission Conference. This conference is also working to promote peace in the world, and Nilay Bant and Karekar, they too have joined here. I will not take much time, but would like to say that we all are here who are working for non-violence, peace, and we have started our conference by enlightening the lamp, and it is our resolve that we have to go from darkness of noise towards the light of peace. Dear friends, as the topic is said, the heritage, legacy of Asian countries in giving the message of peace, non-violence to the world. Still, we have to evolve this very concept of peace in different contexts. We have to preserve and we have to promote this peace culture in the world. Because these days, we are living in the world of technology. We are about to become a citizen of the world. And that is why, though the conflicts, crises are inevitable, we have to find out the ways to how to deal with crisis, how to deal with conflicts, how can we deal with through proper dialogue and negotiations. Unfortunately, this is the history of the world, that this is the history of war and peace. War has destroyed a lot and peace has created a lot for the progress. We are talking on the background of Russia and Ukraine. I am a man of literature. I read a short story by Leo Tolstoy, who has said, how much land does a man need? As well as he has written a beautiful novel also on war and peace. Now this Asia, we are looking at Asia with optimistic view that Asia will give some kind of message. Yes, it is a fact that in Asia also there are some problems. We are also observing some noise. We are also observing non-violence, particularly in Islamic countries also. But still, there are potentialities in Asian countries which can give a different kind of message to the world, the message of peace, message of non-discrimination, and a message of non-violence also. One more important thing I would like to highlight, and that is that most of the Asian countries, more than 95% people are religious people. And the foundation of all religions is peace, non-violence, and humanity. But so-called custodians of the religions have made this earth of more noise, of inhuman practices, and of discrimination also. So we have to fight against such type of mentality who are disturbing our peace and creating violence in the society. Now, as rightly said just now, peace doesn't mean only absence of war. We have to work before war also and after war also, because peace is a kind of mental ability which can give us insight towards humanity. And that is why this dialogue, as well as negotiations, which are more needed for our society. I think ours is the land of prophets. Ours is a land of saints. It is a land of seers. It is land of visionary personalities. And who have taught us brotherhood, taught us love, peace, non-violence. And that is why our heritage, this is the heritage of non-violence. This is the heritage of harmony. This is the heritage of live and let live. This is the heritage of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This is heritage of assimilation. This is a heritage of acceptance. And that is why we know most of the religions like Buddhism, Jainism has taught us non-violence. Hinduism has also philosophy towards humanity, which has given us the message of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. World is one family. Similarly, Islam, now we have started from today only, Ramadan month has started, pious month. Islam, the meaning of Islam itself is peace, Aman, but we know that most of the Islamic countries are in turmoil, they are in violence. So we have to think about such religious ideology, original ideology, their liberalism also. Christianity has taught us love thy neighbor as thyself. So all these things, and even I know there are some atheists, non-believers, they too have set some good universal examples of humanity also. So this is a different kind of heritage, a different kind of people, or different kind of ideologies that Asia has given to world. And now this is the time, now we are called upon to show the way to the world. How can we live peacefully? How can we live with non-discrimination and violence? And that is why here we have observed that war cannot bring but destruction, displacement, and suffering. Now this conference, that World Humanist Forum Asia has brought this conference. What can be the objective behind this? We are not politicians, we are not scholars, but we are only common people. Now it is our voice, the voice of common people, because common people are the sufferers, they are the losers. And that is why we have to raise our voice on behalf of common people, average people. And so we have to show to the world that what type of world we want to achieve, what is our dream. And that is why our heritage, our ideologies are a foundation of Asian culture. In spite of different type of controversies are there, but their hope is that we can work together, we can stand together, and we can fight for justice also. Just now, we have listened to speakers from Sri Lanka. They have explained the emergency situation. We all stand with Sri Lankan brothers and sisters. Now, I will not take much of your time because we are already approaching to 2 hours time for this conference. I express my sincere thanks for giving me opportunity to express my views. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ramboli, for the very inspiring words. And I'm sure your being with us will make a big difference to the whole work that we are doing, because you are working not only at the grassroots level, but working in the Islamic domain, which is very much misunderstood, which is very much in trouble these days, but is a very pious religion like any others, and things need to be set right. Thank you very much. Friends, we are going to miss a very important speaker today, unfortunately, because of the storms and lightning in his area. And that gives us a teaching, a lesson that in future for such conferences, we should request every speaker to give us the video of the speech as a backup. Let me anyway give you an introduction to Dr. Professor M.P. Mathai, who is presently on the governing board of Gandhi Peace Foundation, a very firm Gandhian, but is a very interesting person. The reason for which I want to tell you about him, that he's very interesting person from the point of view of nonviolence. He teaches nonviolence, and he actually converts people from violence to nonviolence. He's the only one person whom I have heard that he teaches people how to be nonviolent, and he's given us plenty of examples of that. He's not only a teacher, he's a real guide, an activist, and I call him a magician whose magic wand converts people to nonviolence. We would have heard from him very interesting things, but we will miss it. But I'm sure, and I can assure you on his behalf, that his magic wand would be available to us for the work that we have undertaken. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to a very interesting aspect of this forum. And I bring you a very simple man who has very interesting life transforming experiences to share based on his work in the humanist movement since 1969. Yes, on 4th May 1969, when Silo formally launched the humanist movement in the mountains of Punta de Vacas in Argentina, he was there with him, and he has stayed a humanist since then. He is currently helping us with the World Humanist Forum Asia as part of its core team. Friends, I'm talking about Antonio Carvalho, who currently lives in UK, and the stage is yours, Antonio.
Thank you, Sudhir, for that very kind introduction. And I will make a few comments, nothing comparable to the important things that have been mentioned by the speakers until now, by Mrs. Tara Gandhi, Mr. P.V. Rajagopal, Mr. Kumar Ketkar, Professor Chamindra Padmakumara, Mr. Tony Robinson, Dr. Vini Araratna, and Professor Samsudin Tamboli. After that, this is not long, but anyway, after that, I will read two proposed resolutions of this Asian Initiative for Peace to see whether they are takers for it and we can give continuity to this wonderful idea towards the Asian World Forum towards the end of the year. I say here, once more, we hear the thunder of war and the clamors of millions of Ukrainians running for life with the families, while the cities and homes get destroyed by the invading Russian army. As always, we hear claims and counterclaims, accusations and justifications. As always, the victims are the children, the old, the weaker, the poorer. War is the scourge of our civilization. All the great spiritual founders along history have denounced it, condemned it, and avoided. Yet at the end of this era, technologically the most advanced in human history, it raises its ugly head once more to remind us of the horrible reality of collective violence, armed violence, in a violent world, run by a violent system that subordinates life in general and human life in particular to pseudo-values such as money, power, ideology, race, nationality, beliefs, and many others. Our civilization is so intertwined today that results impossible to escape the consequences of war wherever we are. The false information of all kinds injures our minds and our personal relations everywhere. Chains of supply of food, of commodities and prices get immediately affected everywhere, and the risk of spreading out in all latitudes very quickly becomes real. We activists for peace and nonviolence across the world are the inheritors of the greatest spiritual traditions that place the human being as a central value and nonviolence as its methodology of action. It is therefore quite right that we feel the urgency of meeting. And many speakers, curiously enough, have mentioned the same thing. It's quite right, the moment. Because we have a huge responsibility to spread and teach how to resist violence in ourselves and in society around us, how to socially organize to denounce and stop violence in a social scale before it bursts into social explosions and collective massacres. It was shocking to see that no clear and strong voices and actions came forward to prevent and avert the war between NATO and Russia in Ukraine. In moments of great conflict, suffering and tension, the intellect gets blocked, the emotion covered by destructive passions, and the action incoherent and aggressive, disabling the human, the humane in ourselves. We need to learn to recognize these indicators before they reach that state. The same happens to full nations in times of war where killing and maiming other human beings becomes the norm. As agents for nonviolence, we need to create awareness and help people to develop self-protection against this lethal virus. In the times we are living, there is no other more valuable and urgent work to be done. This can be done inviting people to personal development sessions where they can gain in contact and understanding of the profound spirituality that lies in the depths of the human consciousness. Most of us do not know that, and therefore have no faith in ourselves, human society, and our incredible potential for intentional transformation. We need to teach, share experience, and help to develop all those in near contact with us. Universalist Humanism was founded by Silo in Argentina in 1969 in a public address known as the Healing of Suffering. That address contained the seeds of the teachings that in the following 40 years became a comprehensive body of theory and practice with the potential to help people to transform their lives. Silo, to us, is the continuator of the highest tradition of spiritual guides. He proclaimed the need to humanize the earth, the name of his central work, and to that goal, he dedicated his life. Now, let me tell you about the forum that we are organizing and that is to take place in the month of November. The Asian Humanist Forum, being prepared for the month of November, is going to be the first virtual regional forum in Asia. It is intended to be a series of panels of discussions amongst people with valuable experience in all areas, which reflect the fundamental problems of individuals and societies in these times. This event we just conclude is a model of what we imagined for the forum in any of its particular sessions, where experiences are shared and links are established that can evolve to wide networks to spread them out to many people who can benefit enormously from them. Today, we have discussed armed conflict resolution, atomic weapons, reactions of citizens in front of war. But physical violence is perhaps the most extreme external expression of violence. As we know, and Sudhir mentioned in his opening address, there are many other forms of violence working in structure within our consciousness, and any of them at one point or another can trigger physical violence. The idea of the physical aggressor as the only perpetrator in conflict is incomplete. Poverty is violence. Discrimination is violence. Destruction of the environment is violence. Ignorance is violence. Gender abuse and suppression. Violations of all human rights are acts of violence. And talking of human rights, we need to redefine many of them. For example, the right to information and truth. The exchanges and conclusions of the forum will be recorded and disseminated and used as teaching material and reference material for thousands of discussions in many homes, schools, and organizations of all sorts. In this manner, the ideas of humanism, nonviolence, and personal transformation will spread far and wide, so influencing and hopefully changing the culture of our times in the direction of overcoming violence. Presenza is the international news agency for peace and nonviolence, partner of the Asian Humanist Forum, and a very important partner for the dissemination of nonviolence information. Presenza was founded by Pia Figueroa in 2009 and publishes daily in 8 languages in all continents, run fully by volunteers. Presenza counts with a wide network of partners, agencies, and individuals who contribute and exchange editorial content. Presenza welcomes new volunteers to enhance its growth in the Asian region. It's important a mention of Presenza because it's a very strong partner in the project of formation of the Asian Forum. And I hope that you will be able to, by working in this project hand by hand, to again communicate the experiences of your particular organizations or lines of actions for the publication and dissemination even before the forum in the month of November. We are open in our editorial offices, and a point of contact here in India would be, well, in India, where you are there, I am in London, would be the point of contact Sudhir, Granddaughter. We have another office in Asia, in the Philippines. As for the future, I could say that the future is difficult because we live through profound changes in this global civilization, where the structure and balance of power is changing and at unprecedented speed. Environmental crisis, global health crisis, values crisis, the collapse of the notion of the nation state and its structures, rampant violence, and more. Yet, we humanists are optimistic. We believe that a new civilization is being born. A universal human nation is starting to configure, and that we can help to shape it with the best of our human intentions and actions in the direction of progress and evolution for all. To live in a particular period like this of civilizational change is something that nobody can subtract from. And we are so interlinked that anything that happens in any point of society, any crisis, it will affect us immediately. We are observing the prices of commodities going up in the corner shop of our houses. If we want to run our car in England, I mean, to fill the tank will be twice what it was in January. And effects of that sort are going to express with incredible power and magnitude everywhere in the world. And we have to get used to that. We are just coming out from the pandemic, and the environment is again reaching critical points and seems to be one after the other after the other. In a situation like that, the only recourse that we have is to join hands with other like-minded human beings, and also to appeal to our internal resources, to our human resources, our spiritual resources. That is the power that really moves evolution into the future. That is the way that we think. And I want to thank you all for sharing your valuable experiences and express the hope that we can join forces in the development of a truly humane future. And now I want to, what I have been entrusted by the organizers of this event, I want to read two resolutions that are very simple, because this conference have been put together by a group of volunteers who feel very strongly about the issues that I've been discussing here, but they don't have a mandate, first, for continuing this process into the future, or to adopt any particular decisions. So I have been asked to present two proposals of resolutions, and for people to vote by raising the hand if they agree, and they don't need to do it if they do not agree. And that then can constitute a ad hoc sort of board to give continuity to the board, to the project. The resolution number 1 would say, this conference resolves to call upon the Russia and Ukrainian governments to immediately stop the war, cease hostilities, and return to strengthen the negotiations to find a non-military path to peace between the two countries. We call upon the NATO allies to stop fueling the fires by arming Ukraine, and instead genuinely help the process of ceasefire towards permanent peace in the area. That is resolution number 1. And resolution number 2. This conference resolves to form the ad hoc committee consisting of the following members to work out the broad aims and objectives and the way of working for this Asian People's Peace Union. The names proposed are Mr. P.V. Rajagopal, Professor M.P. Mathai, Dr. Vinya Aryaratna, Professor Chaminda Padmakumara, Mr. Kumar Ketkar, Mr. Pradipan from India, Ishad Mughal from Pakistan, Ms. Tulsi from Nepal, Nasrul Islam from Bangladesh, Ms. Priya Halpe from Sri Lanka, Ms. Gemma Susara from the Philippines, Mr. Tony Robinson from the Middle East, Antonio Cavallo, Ashutosh Pupatkar, Ajit Menon, Parimal Merchant, Shamsuddin Tamboli, Lakshman, KP, Chandrababu. Sudhir Gandhotra will coordinate this ad hoc committee to create the shape of things to come.
Antonio, just 1 second, please. It seems the material you have, there was two names are missing. One is Mr. Nailesh Dalal from Humanist Movement Mumbai, and one is Mr. Viren Shah from Humanist Movement Mumbai. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Sudhir. Well, what is left here is thank you. And we invite you then to vote by a show of hands, if you are in agreement.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we declare these as our first resolutions of the conference. And now, friends, we have some testimonials from different countries. And I would like to invite to begin with Mr. Ishad Mughal from Pakistan to give us his 1 minute supporting talk about this. Ishad, can we have you here?
Yes, thank you, Sudhir bhai, and thank you.
1 second, before you start speaking, let me put you on for everybody to see. 1 second, please. Yes, Ishad, please go ahead.
Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for inviting me to this forum. From my behalf and from Pakistanis, humanists, we also think like other human beings, war is never justified, and there is no logic sufficient to justify the brutality of humanity around the world. So I think whatever we can do, we should do to stop the war, not only in Ukraine or in just like Europe, all around the world, because there are so many different types of conflicts around the world. And basically these conflicts trigger the big wars. Initially, we hardly take care of these conflicts, but when they come to the nude violence and use of weapons, and then maybe it is the consciousness of human beings that we think about it. I think it is a long process because human beings build a peace in centuries, but war requires a few minutes or a few hours to destroy the whole development and whole constructions of the human beings. I think that is not justified. And mostly, if we look at the root causes of these wars, and we can find the expansions, the aggressions, the arrogance, the greed, and all these things that are putting all the human beings at the brink of the various types of the crises. So I think I also condemned all these wars, not only one war, all wars around the world. And thank you for, because I also worked in my capacity with different type of the extremists to stop various types of violence attitudes. And I know it is very difficult task that we human beings started. And you know that all the non-violence champions in history, they also have to face various types of violence too. But still there are enough chances and enough opportunities that we all human beings can spread our message due to the social media and due to the easy access that was not possible in the past. Thank you so much for inviting me and for giving me a chance to speak the words on my behalf, and wish you good luck and thank you. Thank you, Sudhir bhai.
Thank you, Ishad, for representing Pakistan and assuring us that you are with us, because one day we want to walk over the border and meet each other. Thank you very much.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Now we will hear the testimonial from Nepal. Tulsi has sent her recorded message, a brief recorded message. So let me share that with you.
Affect not only me, not only you, all over the world does it affect so highly. So we strongly oppose the war. We don't believe in violence and all those kind of activities. So we people from Nepal coming together for together with Asian people to establish permanent peace activities, coming together and doing the things much strongly, more strongly in Nepal, and ready to shake hand all over the world, whatever we should do for this permanent peace establishment. And we believe in humanism, not in war. This is my commitment. If in future, if we have to do anything to take action against war and violence, we always ready. We were ready, and we always ready to be there for against the violence. Thank you.
Friends, now I would like to invite Nicholas from Australia to speak his mind of support to this initiative. Nicholas.
Yes, this is, from Australia. Probably, I'm not sure how many people know that there is a new alliance, a military alliance between UK, USA, and Australia, which it's not understood why there is, because there were already other military alliance. But the problem is not that this new alliance, which is like as they want to have a show of strength against possible enemy. It could be China, it could be Russia. But what it shows that Australia should be focusing on building alliance, cultural, economic alliance with Asia, instead of having a opposition, like looking at China. Possible China will be an aggressor, will be with this. There are fears of what China might do in Asia. The best thing that Australia can do is build ties of friendship and cooperation with all the Asian countries. So that's this is what's happening from here in Australia. They still don't want to feel part of Asia. So that's but the best thing is to work towards basically eliminating the need to have military alliance. One said, well, what's wrong with a military alliance? You want to defend yourself. But we should start building strong ties, economic and cultural ties with other countries. And for Australia, other countries are neighbors, which all of Asia. So that's my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you very much. Friends, now we have the testimony from Declare in Australia. We have the video of it. I'll play it for you. And in the meanwhile, Nasrul can be ready with his talk.
Good evening, friends. I'm Claire from Sydney, Australia. I just want to send a warm salutation to all the friends who are participating in this very relevant peace conference today. The world is going in the wrong direction, and it's up to common people to reorient the efforts towards a peaceful and non-violent planet. We need urgent issues to be solved: climate change, poverty, resources, etc. We believe that all the money used in weapons should be diverted to the solution of these problems. With a warm affection again, peace, force, and joy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Declan. I now invite Nasrul Islam from Bangladesh for his supporting words. Nasrul, are you there?
Hello everyone, good evening. I'm Nasrul Islam from Bangladesh, and I would like to say that we oppose the war because we want to promote peace, as it will allow us to get a humanized world. We from Bangladesh will make every effort to come together, adopt peace, the unity of Asian people, and build world peace. Thanks to all of you for listening. Peace, force, and joy.
Thank you, Nazrul.
Yes, Pradeepan, it's yours. Your turn now.
5 મિનિટ આપીને પતી જશે. કેટલા ખાલી બોક્સ છે? આના અલાવા અંદર 6.
Friends, please
Hello,
keep yourself
Pradeepan.
on mute and let Pradeepan say his words. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you. Today, most of the political leadership in the world are in the path of the violence. But at the same time, the peace conference is setting another example to the world. This is the new model to be followed. The model of ahimsa, the model of non-violence. In reality, our country is the cradle of non-violence. This is where Mahavira was born. And this is where the Buddha spoke to the common people about the non-violence. This is where Mahatma Gandhi, the prophet of non-violence, chanted the mantra of ahimsa to the whole world as a solution of the present crisis. It is extremely inspiring to see this happen in such a country. We, the humanists of India, wholeheartedly support the spirit and letter of this peace conference. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very nice, Pradeepan. Very nice.
Thank you, friends. Thanks a lot for a very patient being together for almost 2.5 hours. And we are very happy that this small team of ours of just about 5 people, supported by a few others, but supported by many in action on the ground. So I'm talking of the 5 people who organized the whole thing, that we could reach out to this variety of speakers who are definite personalities in the field of non-violence in their fields. And we are very happy that they accepted our invitation on this humble effort. And I must thank Mr. P.V. Rajagopal, Mrs. Tara Gandhi Bhattacharya, Mr. Tony Robinson, Mr. Kumar Ketkar, Dr. Vinya Areratna, Dr. Professor M.P. Mathai, who could not be present with us, but he's there with us, Dr. Professor Shamsuddin Tamboli, Dr. Chamunda Padmakumara, and our own Antonio Carvalho. I say our own because he's part of the organization team, to organize this event and help us organize this event. I assure you on behalf of the organizers and our supporter that this initiative has started. It is not going to end with this conference. This conference was the point to see how much support we have, and we see that we are in the right place. Humanism is the need of the times. Non-violence is need of the times. As Dr. Vinya shared with us that in spite of the curfew and police and military, people went out peacefully on their own. They were not called by anybody and stood there in front of the police and army, say, don't point your guns with us, you are part of us. And let's try to solve the things together. This is the way that things are going to be solved. The 378-day protest by farmers here in Delhi, in India, showed that non-violence can solve things. It has to be more organized. It has to be taken up to more people. So whether we talk of Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, all the countries which are represented here, and all those who could not be with us, from Priya Halpe from Sri Lanka, Gemma from Philippines, who were supposed to be here, they could not participate for different reasons. We will grow in coming days. We will come back to you with more activities and your support and your ideas for these activities, so that we can build a peaceful Asia as the base for a peaceful world. Let me tell you that the crisis that we are seeing, whether be it in Russia, Ukraine, be it in Sri Lanka, as we heard, or anywhere else, or in India, all these things have been warned by Silo, not as an astrologer, but giving the reasons precisely in his books. They are available. What is happening against minorities, what is happening with the nuclear wars and the crazy politicians and all that, and the neoliberal system where money is the most important thing, whereas the humanism says that human beings should be the most important thing. All this is there, and let us together take it forward. Thank you very much. But before you leave, I need 1.5 minutes of yours. I need 1.5 minutes of yours to do what we call an asking. Dr. Vinay Areratne said, send us your spiritual energy. Let me tell you that there is a way to do that. I will conduct a brief exercise. Please follow my instructions. It takes just 1 minute or 1.5 minutes. Keep one hand on your heart. Sit in a relaxed posture and close your eyes. From your mouth, breathe gulp of air and take the air not to your lungs but to your heart. And with your hands, try to feel the air going into your heart. Keep breathing deeply from your mouth, taking the air to your heart. Keep breathing from your mouth, taking the gulps of air to your heart, feeling the air going to your heart. Stay with your eyes closed for a minute. While you keep breathing and feeling this air in your heart, with all your faith and all your strength, ask for the best for yourself and your loved ones. Ask that everything be fine with you and your loved ones. Let us ask that the war in Ukraine stops today, stops now, and both sides come back to negotiating table. Let us ask that the crisis which has started in Sri Lanka stops and changes over to a non-violent situation for everyone. Let us ask for strength and clarity to ourselves and people around us and to peace all around. Let us ask that we have enough peace, force, and joy to build the peaceful Asia of our dreams. Keep breathing deeply while you ask. You may ask once or more than once. When you finish, you can gently open your eyes and join us back in this time and space. When you have finished, you can join us back and we can all unmute ourselves. And it's free for all now. The formal part of the meeting is over. Thank you very much from our hearts to be with us.
You can stop recording.
With this we move forward.
Thank
Please
you.
stop
Thank you,
recording.
Sudhir, for a very nice program.